The following is a non-verdict-based research versus show. The stats of the individual characters are not taken into consideration when determining aspects of the fight. However, the characters themselves are going to be represented in their full capacity outside of power scaling. This is Versus Universe. In the wide world we all live in, many species occupy space in the grander scheme of the ecosystem. But what happens when something disrupts that ecosystem, with nothing but its immense potential for killing? Clearly, this is the beginning of a new apex, but things are not often as they seem. And soon enough, the world will correct itself. Meruem, the chimera ant king from Hunter x Hunter. And Cell, the perfect being from Dragon Ball. Let's begin. The world of Hunter x Hunter is vast. From the bustling metropolis of York New City to the secluded and elusive Greed Island. However, one only should look southward for the, shall we say, fun areas. One of which being the NGL. In the NGL, electricity of any kind is forbidden, unless it's used by the government, of course. This led its people to a modest lifestyle. That is, until a horror, the likes of which no one in this country had ever seen, emerged. The chimera ant. These creatures, all birthed by the chimera ant queen, are unique. Whatever the queen consumes and digests gets added to the next ant who's born's DNA, and such will take on the attributes of that species. And unfortunately, she found herself craving humans the most. This led to countless human-esque ants being born, as the people of NGL were mercilessly slaughtered in droves. Don't worry too much, the country was essentially a front for a scumbag criminal, but most of these people were innocent. Just not all. Eventually, the queen gave birth to 3 special ants whose power eclipsed every single one that came before. These would be the Royal Guard, consisting of Neferpito, or Pito, Shiapoof, or Poof, and Montatayupi, or Yupi. But even then, they couldn't compare to what was next. The queen was ready to birth her prodigal son, the chimera ant king. Incubating for an excessive amount of time, the king growing inside of her decided he was done waiting, and tore himself out of her womb. Who stepped out was a ruthless, cold-blooded, murderous ant. What he became was a thoughtful, intelligent, and powerful man. This is the story of the chimera ant king, who would come to be known as Meruem. The king was born insanely powerful, one of his first actions being to kill a random ant who got too close. Keep in mind, normal humans couldn't lay a finger on these guys, and the king just swatted his whole entire head away like it was nothing. Unimpressed with the palace the ants have built in NGL, he decided to go forth and look for a throne worthy of his status as king. Along the way, he killed and ate any human he came across, some in particular being extraordinarily nutritious. These people, designated special humans by the ants, were in reality people who had awakened to the power of Nen. And what is Nen, you ask? I'm so fucking glad you did. So a Nen is essentially your aura, and dependent on the type of person you are, you can control that aura in different ways. Enhancers just make themselves stronger or enhance a certain part of their body. Transmuters can easily transform their aura and give it unique properties. Emitters have an easier time releasing aura from their bodies. Conjurers can make their aura into a tangible object, and manipulators can mix their aura with a target of their choosing and control them. You may notice I haven't talked about this little guy over here. It's because they're special, and you need to give them space. Like, look at this chart. I love this chart, and I don't have any idea what the fuck any of it means. And the dude whose ability this chart belongs to? He's a specialist. Now that's just explaining the categories. The actual abilities are where a lot of fun is to be had. Meruem's specific ability is Aura Synthesis, which basically means anything he consumes he is granted the ability of. You'd think with this ability, and being the fucking king, he'd be a specialist, right? Well, he was. And then Almighty Tagashi swooped in and said, no. Emitter. I'm a little bummed about it, but Emission is kind of a meme on Nen category, so it needs to start like Meruem to make it shine. And Razor, but this isn't about him. This ability, to grow by consumption, made Meruem seek out all the humans he could, particularly those special humans mentioned earlier, and finally, him and his royal guard found a place to call home. North Korea, kinda. This is East Gorteau, and they just killed the dude who ran the place. Together, they came up with a plan to cull the human population of East Gorteau, but it would take nearly a full month to complete. In the meantime, the king began to sharpen his mind by playing the masters of every game he could learn about. The rules were simple every time. If they win, they live. If they lose, they die. Eventually, Meruem always improved enough to defeat these masters. Then he learned of a game called Gungi, and the master they brought in to play with him was a blind girl. Little did the king know, this girl would change his entire perspective on humanity and power, and this girl's name was Komugi. In the coming weeks, Meruem and Komugi would sit down to play Gungi every day for hours at a time. No matter what the king tried, he could not seem to best her in the slightest. And along the way, something shifted. Almost subconsciously, he began to care for her. In a really fucked up kinda, I'll show you how much you mean to me by ripping my own arm off kinda way, but still. His feelings towards Komugi caused a rift in his royal guard as well. Pito respecting his feelings, Yuppie not really caring one way or the other, and poof. Ooh boy, poof. He hated this girl, since she represented the change Meruem was slowly undergoing. Butterfly Man was in love with the idea of the king, not the actual king himself. He even asked his royal guard if he has a name such as theirs, since the concept of naming themselves only existed due to the human influence on this batch of chimera ants. Unsatisfied with all of their answers, he went to cull the root of his distress, Komugi herself. Kill her, he was going to kill her. Only to find her lying on the ground, bloodied. And, instead of finishing off an already weakened prey, he helped her up and took her hand. This would be the point of no return. At this point, he realized his old way of thinking was flawed, but there was no time to dwell on these thoughts, as a group of hunters came and stormed the palace. However, the real terror came from the sky. Riding a dragon made of Nen were Zeno Zoldyck of the Zoldyck family of assassins, and Isaac Netero, the chairman of the Hunter Association. They were tasked with the extermination of these bugs, and were going to see it through, no matter what. Zeno's attack rampaged through the palace, uncaring in its trajectory, and wouldn't you know it, a piece of rubble just happened to hit Komugi, leaving her completely vulnerable and near death's door. Pito used their ability, Dr. Blythe, to heal her, but the hunters were metaphorically knocking on their door along with the king's. He would agree to leave the palace and go someplace else to fight. As he sensed their intentions with little effort, Zeno left the battleground to live another day, whilst Netero stayed to squash the bug. But before he could, the king explained that he had no intention of fighting, that he had changed. He realized that power is not a force to oppress, but rather a force to uplift, to protect the weak who need it the most. He thought he could erase borders, eliminate poverty, and create a truly equal world where there was no suffering. However, Netero stayed true to his mission. He even goaded the king on by saying the one thing that would make the king listen, that he knew the king's true name. And so, the two would fight in an epic clash, one only to reveal information about himself he desperately wanted, and one to exterminate the world of a monster. As the two of them fought, it was clear Netero, even being the master of Nen he was simply no match for Meruem's careful application of the power he had accrued at birth. The thousands of games of Gungi had seemingly made him a master strategist, and he used this fact to his advantage. Firstly, taking the old man's right leg, and then taking his left arm. Assuming he had won the fight, Netero tried one last thing, a Hail Mary attack of all the power he had left. But even then, it was barely enough to scratch Meruem. Realizing he had lost the fight, and sitting there, a husk of the man he was not even a minute ago, Netero began to smile. He said to the king his name, Meruem, that it meant the light that shines above all. He also said that Meruem was unaware of just one thing, humanity's infinite capacity for malice. He plunged 2 fingers into his heart, killing himself in the process. And then, a light began to form from his corpse. Meruem realized only too late that checkmate was Narrator's from the start. And then, a bomb was set off. This bomb was the miniature rose, something indicative of the horrors mankind would undergo just to maintain power. Not only was the bomb incredibly deadly due to its explosive power, it also released a deadly poison that would interact with anyone it came into contact with. It was an omen of death in itself, and Meruem was right in the middle of the blast. Poof and Yuppie rushed to the king's side. Pito was busy, and saw him completely charred from the blast, and lacking all of his memories from before. Using his aura synthesis ability, he ate the two royal guards, and thus gained their abilities. But like, an advanced version of them? See, Yuppie's Rage Blast was fine and all, but Meruem's was able to carve out this huge mountain from super far away. He also gained their ability to fly with this, sprouting a new pair of wings as he rushed back to the palace. Poof thought to himself that he could use the king's amnesia to his advantage. All he would have to do is find and kill Komugi. But Meruem was not stupid. He knew Poof had some sort of ulterior motive, and sought out the thing he was struggling with remembering. He rushed through the crowd of people gathered for this election, their plan for East Gorteau a distant thought in his mind at this point. Approaching him from behind, a random chimera ant appeared before Meruem. Meruem asked him what he had lost. The ant said one word: Komugi. And the thoughts, memories, and feelings all rushed back through Meruem's mind, his sense of self finally restored with this last puzzle piece. Meruem knew he didn't have much time left as the poison of the bomb worked its way through his body, and so he sought Komugi out to die peacefully beside her. When he did finally find her, she asked him something, if it was possible for someone like her to feel so happy. He responded by saying if she were to stay with him, she too would die. She kept playing their game of Gungi, implicitly saying words he needed to hear. It did not matter if it was near their deaths or not. Komugi would always wish to be by his side, playing Gungi with him. He came to one last realization before his end, that he was born here for this moment. Not to be a grand chimera ant king, not to rule the world, not even to use the power he had for good. He was only born to love this person, as this person was born to love him. And so he went into a peaceful slumber, dying in his sleep in Komugi's arms. She would soon join him, and thus concludes the tale of the Chimera Ant King, who ended his life in a way unfathomably human. But in life, there was none more feared and respected than the light that shines above all. Meruem. You guys ready for the Dragon Ball character? Because holy fuck, I am!
You see, I have learned what true power is meant to be used for. To protect the weak, who deserve to live. That is its purpose. Power shouldn't be used to torment the defeated.
Goku, Piccolo, Vegeta, Frieza. What do these four have in common? Aside from being a little fruity, these are some of the strongest fighters in the entire galaxy. Goku, in particular, was often targeted by vile villains, hoping they could take him down, and nobody could. One such villain was not a singular entity, but an entire conglomerate, the Red Ribbon Army. As a child, Goku thought he had defeated the army and set his sights on far greater foes. However, in secret, one remnant persisted of the once great force, Dr. Gero. As the head scientist of the Red Ribbon Army, he was responsible for one of the greatest technological breakthroughs the world of Dragon Ball had ever seen. The android. Artificial beings with incredible destructive power. Gero kept building and building until he even turned himself into an android. All was built with one thought in mind: to kill the man responsible for the Red Ribbon Army's downfall. for the murder of Son Goku. Counting himself, he had made 20 fully operational androids, but tried to kill Goku with just him and 19, the clown-looking fucker. However, they were not prepared for the overwhelming power that Goku and the newly inducted Vegeta had, and 19 was destroyed. Brutally. Going back to his base, Jiro awakened 2 more of his creations, androids 17 and 18. These 2 were not as loyal to him, and in fact fucking killed him after waking up his son, kind of, but somewhere else on the planet, as well as right beneath their feet. A menacing presence would make itself known, emerging from a mold 4 years in the making. There was someone with a mix of energies making himself known. The DNA of Goku, Piccolo, Vegeta, and Frieza. And King Cold was rampaging through town after town, killing everyone in sight. This was Dr. Jiro's crowning achievement. This was the height of evolution. This was Cell. Greeting him here was Piccolo, one of the fighters who made up his DNA. Cell explained he was a creation of Dr. Jiro, and that he could do something incredibly terrifying. He could drink people. Like, stick his little tail in there and just slurp them up real good and suck all of their energy with it. He absorbs their power. He did this in droves, with basically any populated place he could find, killing people to attain a massive amount of power. However, even with this power, it would not be enough for him. Not only because Piccolo kinda kicked his ass, but also because he was not complete. The only thing that could complete him, or rather, things, were his fellow androids, 17 and 18 respectively. 16 didn't really factor into this much. Cell also showed Piccolo another key feature of his design, his ability to mimic. Or rather, he knew several techniques that his unwillful sperm donors also knew. Chief among them to Piccolo, being the Makanko Sapo, which he tried to do but got bitch slapped away. And the solar flare. Good old solar flare makes for the perfect "get me the fuck out of here" button to push. And Cell pushed that button, fucking up everyone's eyes and fucking up other people's internal organs. By drinking them. Now, you may be asking, Skye, you vaguely alluded to there being more than one Cell. The fuck was that about? Time travel. He's a baby here and the big one isn't a baby and he's from the future. Next question. Cell was on a mission to get strong enough to leave this imperfect body behind and reach new heights. The heights that could only be afforded by perfection. So, he kept massacring towns, cities, and amusement parks until it was time to meet with his siblings. Despite Piccolo and all the androids being here, not one of them could match Cell in combat. Although 16 did kinda whoop his ass. I'm sensing a pattern, and that's that Cell might be a little bitch. Well, regardless, using everyone's favorite element aside from hydrogen, the element of surprise, he ate 17. Like, I don't know what else to describe it as. I'm not saying the V word. Absorbing the android, Cell had transformed. He was no longer imperfect, but perfection had yet to be obtained before 18 was absorbed. He was now semi-perfect. Oh fuck, it's Vegeta, the guy I ate that one time. He's, kinda kicking Cell's ass. Again, my bitch theory might be accurate, but Cell showed just how dastardly he was by appealing to Vegeta's ego, something no one else would have ever thought of, and the Prince of All Saiyans allowed Cell to absorb 18. Trunks was there too and could have stopped him, but he didn't. Finally, after 4 years incubating and countless innocents slaughtered, Cell had reached his dream. He was now perfect. Now is as good a time as any to talk about Cell's abilities, because of every Dragon Ball character, he might have the most healthy selection of attacks out of the bunch. As stated before, these abilities all stem from his dad's, and as such he doesn't know literally every technique in Dragon Ball, although through Goku he might as well. He's got the classics, you know, your Kamehamehas, your solar flares, the works. He's also got lesser known attacks such as the Makanko Sapo mentioned earlier, and his own version of the Big Bang attack called the Big Bang Crash. But, maybe most importantly, he also inherited abilities related to the other's biology. In particular, he can undergo a Zenkai boost. That's when a Saiyan almost dies and they get a power increase as a result. How would that work if they had a terminal illness? Did Goku get Zenkai boost from the heart virus? Anyway, Cell doesn't just have plain old Saiyan biology mixing around in his gross bug veins. He's also got Namekian in there, which means that he has a Namekian's healing factor, which, is nuts. So long as it's not a hole in the chest, a Namekian can heal from pretty much any injury, including amputation. With these abilities, as well as the power he absorbed from 17 and 18, not one fighter there stood a chance against him. He was seemingly above everyone else. But that didn't excite him. He decided via live broadcast that he would host the Cell Games, an open invitation tournament with only one stipulation. If Cell won, he would destroy the world. He can do that. After 7 days of waiting, the time came for the fate of the world to be decided, but not before killing Satan, Mr. Satan, that is. At long last, Cell would be delivered a challenge worth caring about. A fight against Son Goku. In their fight, they were nearly evenly matched. That is, until Goku suddenly backed off and sent in his own son. Gohan, someone Cell couldn't give two perfect shits about, was now his ultimate opponent, and he was pissed. He barely even attempted to fight Gohan, instead toying with the boy and just kinda not taking anything with him seriously. Then, Cell killed the last remaining android besides himself, 16, and Gohan snapped. So Cell got excited because he had another Goku-like opponent? Wrong. Gohan was just there to kill Cell, not fight him. This drove Cell to madness, or like further madness, and he nearly destroyed the world right then and there. Gohan stopped him, but he tried. Also, Gohan kicked him so hard he threw up 18. Gross. More pissed than ever before, Cell pulled one more trick out of his ass. He revealed he could blow himself up. The power of this blast would supposedly destroy the planet, and there was nothing Gohan could do to stop it. So, Goku stepped in, sacrificing his life in order to save the Earth. Except, LMAO, Cell's regeneration is so fucking busted, he can literally survive from a single molecule existing. In one last stand, Gohan and Cell both fired a Kamehameha of epic proportions, both super pissed off at the other. In what would be his final clash, Cell was ultimately overpowered and was vaporized without a trace. Since then, he's kinda been brought back to life a couple of times, and his design was used for Cell Max. Fucking kaiju Cell. But no other version of him could compare in villainy to the one who achieved perfection. The one true, perfect Cell.
My perfect form, the perfect body, the perfect power, the fulfillment of my purpose. Truly marvelous.
We open to the front of a version of the Iskorto Palace, with no one inside or out except for one person, or rather, one ant. Meruem, the Chimera Ant King, is sitting in front of the palace, with his right leg raised and his right arm resting on said leg. On the horizon, he spots a figure approaching him, but before his eyes, the figure vanishes. Then, suddenly, the figure reappears right in front of him, and attempts to kick him in his gut. Meruem blocks this with his tail, and the figure speaks out to him.
Hello there, bug.
Meruem does not speak to this intruder, but his eyes remain gazed at him.
What's this? The silent treatment? That's no way to greet someone. Maybe introductions are in order. I am Perfect Cell, and I will be fighting you now.
Meruem's attention is caught at the end of Cell's last sentence.
Fight? I will not fight you. Leave.
Unfortunately, you don't have a choice. Unless you wish to stay in this world forever.
Meruem, without moving, realizes the gravity of Cell's words. If what this weird creature says is true, then perhaps he can find what he has been missing. That girl.
This changes things. If we fight, I will get to leave?
Or so I'm told. Come on, bud, face me! And don't hold back!
Meruem remains seated, leading Cell to believe that the former is not taking him seriously.
What? Would you like a demonstration? Fine. I'll show you my perfect power.
At this display of power, Meruem is fully taken aback, both in his mind and literally, as the resulting aura pushes his sitting form back a good few feet before he grips the flooring with his toes.
What is this red? It's unlike anything I've ever seen or heard. Almost like it's composed of several different people compiled with one another. Fascinating. And its raw power is nothing to scoff at. This perfect cell may just be my match.
Meruem, slowly but surely, begins to stand, stretching out all of his muscles as he does so. He enters a fighting stance, and with a flash, his own aura emanates from his body. His and Cell's both match, and the latter smirks as he sees Meruem start to take this more seriously.
Finally! Let's go all out!
Cell then flies toward Meruem at Mach speeds, readying a punch that would send the latter into the stratosphere. However, at the last second, an appendage comes up and blocks the punch. This appendage was Meruem's tail, as he held his arms crossed. It seems like it would take more than just a show of strength to get the Chimera Ant King to take Cell seriously.
A predictable move. You have no tact when it comes to stratagem.
You! Don't you dare mock perfection!
Cell then sends blow after blow Meruem's way, but the Chimera Ant King blocks them all with ease by utilizing his tail. Meruem then sees a pattern in how Cell delivers his punches, and calculates a strategy that would utilize an opening between Cell's strikes. He strikes with his tail, sending Cell flying back through the palace, and through a wall. Largely undamaged, Cell stops himself in midair with his flight and rushes back in to the fight.
Do you wish to die that badly? I will not hold back if you continue.
Cell screams, throwing a punch at Meruem, who once again blocks it with his tail. But then, the perfect being kicks at Meruem's side, and he has to block it with his arm this time.
Hold back! Hold back! Bud, I want you to give this your all! I won't accept anything else as the ultimate fighter!
Cell then delivers another kick, this time to Meruem's opposite arm, but the Chimera Ant King catches it mid-swing, and his eyes glow with a purple hue.
Fine.
Meruem then punches Cell straight in his chest, and it causes him to completely halt his thoughts, as the only thought entering his mind is how painful that blow was.
Pathetic. The so-called ultimate fighter goes down after one punch?
Nope!
Cell then headbutts Meruem, causing him to slide back while still standing. Cell then flies toward Meruem, but then backs away as he gets an idea. He starts to barrage the king with ki blasts from a safe distance. As he throws multiple blasts per second, a cloud of dust begins to surround Meruem. And as it clears, it shows that the Chimera Ant had taken absolutely no damage from Cell's barrage.
What?
Emission. A perfect use of Nen, and yet it did nothing. Would you prefer a proper demonstration?
Meruem then begins to extend his aura to Cell, currently in the air, and changes it to become something more malicious. This malicious aura causes Cell to freeze in fear, as he had never felt something like this before, the intent of a predator catching its prey. Meruem jumps between the massive pillars of this place and meets Cell in the air, as he strikes at one of his arms, fully separating it from Cell's body.
Prepare yourself. Your right leg is next.
Cell groans in pain as blood oozes out of the wound. After a while, the groan turns into a laugh, and Meruem notices the change in Cell's disposition.
Laughter?
Allow me to show you the powers of perfection!
Cell then steadies himself, and a new arm emerges from the wound he just sustained. Meruem is shocked at this, while Cell is currently stretching his new arm, and giddily gloats.
This is the power of the ultimate fighter. You see, Bud, I am no mere warrior. I am the best of every race, neatly rolled into one super being. And that's not the only ability my superiority grants me.
Cell then points a finger at Meruem, and pink energy begins to gather around his fingertip.
More than one ability?
Death Beam!
Cell then fires one laser at Meruem, who easily blocks it, this time with his left hand. As the beam is redirected, it hits a nearby wall, completely shattering the structure.
You're a curious one.
Meruem then begins to walk towards Cell, slowly.
I'll show you!
Cell then fires beam after beam Meruem's way, but every time an attack is about to connect, the Chimera Ant King blocks it with one of his hands, sending the beam elsewhere to seriously damage the palace. In the span of 7 seconds, this action occurs at least 50, no, 100 times. A cloud of immense dust, both from the continuous attacks and the rubble, engulf Meruem. The only thing visible to Cell, a radiant, vile, malicious purple aura, where his eyes would be.
Such strength should not reside in those hands.
Cell, both from none of his attacks landing and from Meruem's supposed insult, is infuriated.
What are you saying, Bug?
You possess immense potential. Anybody who was not blind could see that.
Something about that sentence made by the Chimera Ant King stopped for a moment to think. It was the word blind. But why would that make him pause? He knew nobody who was blind.
Potential? Potential? How can I have potential when I am already perfect?
Meruem snaps out of his thoughts and looks back at Cell.
A show of true power is in order then.
Meruem then closes the distance between him and Cell in an instant, and begins to ready a kick to his side. Cell, instead, catches Meruem's arm and throws him to the ground, while his other hand is raised and readying a devastating ki blast. Cell puts his other hand right at Meruem's face and lets loose the beam, completely destroying the floor and leading them both to some kind of spacious basement for them to carry out their fight. Meruem feels something dripping down his cheek. Blood. Cell actually managed to give him an injury. He was correct. This creature, whatever he was indeed powerful.
Ha! Finally, blood. It's good to know everyone bleeds. You just have to hit them hard enough.
Meruem then wipes the blood from his cheek, the wound remaining.
You have done what no creature could. Congratulations.
Meruem then releases his entire aura through the use of Ren to showcase his power to Cell, as the latter looks on in fear.
Ugh. What?
As congratulations, I have shown you my true power. I have not limited myself in the slightest. Do you understand now? I do not wield this power without caution.
Cell is transfixed on Meruem's aura and is barely listening to his words.
I need to buy myself some time. What can I do? I know! It's the perfect plan!
Meruem then suddenly feels another presence beside Cell, then another, and another, and another, until there are 6 shorter auras all standing beside him. Cell has summoned all of his Cell Juniors to the battlefield. Meruem looks at the tiny versions of the creature he has been fighting all this time, but does not change his apathetic gaze.
Behold, Bug! The progeny of perfection! My Cell Juniors will give you hell! Attack!
One of the Cell Juniors rushes in at Meruem, but before it can do anything, the Chimera Ant King grabs it by the arm, lifts it to his mouth, and bites into the creature's brain. After swallowing the mess of flesh, he throws the remains of what is left of the creature's body onto the ground, making the other Cell Juniors, and Cell himself to an extent, cower in fear.
Progeny? You know nothing of blood. I suppose I must thank you. Though not appetizing, this creature has blessed me with a newfound power.
Cell gets enraged, more than he ever has been at Meruem up to this point.
I'm not just someone you can toss aside! Not me, or my Cell Juniors! We are the apex! We are the predator! And you, the prey! You'll see that soon enough! From beyond your shallow grave!
Cell then sends the remaining Cell Juniors at Meruem, in the hopes they can fend him off. Before any of them do, however, Meruem retorts to Cell's words.
Pray? Me? No. No, this won't do. If I am to be prey, there is something wrong with the world, and it is my duty to correct this ecosystem, as its king.
Meruem then takes the nearest Cell Junior next to him, grabs its head, and twists it so far in the opposite direction that it makes a sickening snap, before throwing that corpse in with the one he ate earlier. 2 Cell Juniors rush him this time, but Meruem meets their speed as he too rushes in, grabbing the both of them and smashing them into each other. The result of this clash is a splattering of organs and blood, as both Cell Juniors explode on impact right in front of Meruem's body. They fall, limp, in opposite directions, guts and blood still spilling out from where the two's bodies met with Meruem's ferocious clap. A Cell Junior sharpens and elongates its nails, trying to zoom at Meruem's neck and slit his throat. However, the creature's nails break on impact with the chimera ant's skin, and while still in the air, Meruem bites at the creature's ear, rips it off, and chops through its body diagonally, perfectly separating it from where he chopped. The last Cell Junior almost goes to face Meruem, but flies to run away. Cell then sends an energy beam to kill the last Cell Junior himself. Meruem is confused at this display.
Why would you?
Perfection doesn't run. I certainly don't. And anything that's not perfect shall perish.
Cell then fires the same strength beam that killed the Cell Junior at Meruem, who nearly dodges the attack. As he does, it collides with the back of the gargantuan basement they are in, and the world around them begins to shake. Cell begins to float up, taunting Meruem while barraging him with ki blasts all the same.
Haha! Let's see you escape a crushing defeat, Bug! Go on! Fly!
Meruem, given no choice due to the palace about to crumble, has to take Cell's advice. He sprouts a pair of wings, and flies up to meet Cell far above where the palace is.
You know, Bug, I'm curious. You said you got a new power, right? Let's see it! Come on! Let me give you an incentive!
Cell then finds a nearby pile of rubble he can rest his legs on, as he takes a wide stance, with his hands on his right hip forming a ball.
This one's special, Bug! Just for you! The perfect attack!
A steady beam of energy begins forming from Cell's hands, as he begins to chant his attack's iconic name. Meruem sees the attack Cell is charging, and is remiss that he will have to do what Cell wants. He will have to use his newfound ability, that of sustaining the energy of an immediate attack against him. His left arm begins transforming, and the king thinks about the things that truly make him angry. And right now, at this moment, the thing that makes him the most livid is Cell himself. This abomination of a creature, that in certain ways represents the worst aspects of himself, truly fills him with a loathsome passion that he uses to power the Rage Blast. Meruem gathers every ounce of energy he can through his arm, and lets loose. As the blue of Cell's Kamehameha escapes from his hands in a burst of light, so does a red energy from Meruem's Rage Blast. The thin strings of energy meet in the middle, causing a cataclysmic clash that both struggle to maintain in the wake of their opposition. As the two struggle against one another's beams, a surge of the clash escapes through the top, the blue and red lights coalescing to form the shape of a rose. The energy from this blast keeps releasing at the top, until both beams are nothing but flickers of light. Both clearly spent, Cell and Meruem allow for a moment of peace, before rushing at each other once again.
Insignificant little insect! I'll squash you!
Cell then grabs at one of Meruem's wings and rips it off at the base. The Chimera Ant King wails in agony, but Cell is still catching his breath from the beam struggle. This would give Meruem enough time to reach back and rip off one of Cell's own wings, who in turn let out a deafening screech of pain and suffering. They both come crashing down to the rubble below, the crescendo of this broken palace lifted by the debris that holds them both as the dust settles and they both stand.
I said, your leg was next. I miscalculated. You call me an insect. Bug. I am no mere creature, perfect Cell. I am a king. Not by blood, not by birthright, but simply because I am the most powerful. Do you know what power is?
Cell regenerates his wing before responding, groaning in pain as he does so.
Do I know what power is? You're kidding, right? You've seen me in action. You've seen perfection. And you have the audacity, the nerve, to ask me if I know what power is. Please, if you're half the king you claim to be, then you wouldn't need to ask such idiotic crap.
Power in the hands of the incompetent.
Oh, to hell with this philosophical travel!
Cell attempts to swing at Meruem, but the king catches the perfect being's arm, looks him in the eyes, and throws him to the ground.
Don't make me repeat myself. You are incompetent. Yet, you possess an immense power. If I were not careful, I very well could have died during any moment in our bout. But raw strength is not enough. To possess power itself is to know what it is meant for. To protect the weak and defend the innocent. 2 words that do not describe you.
So, what? Pretty words do nothing for you!
Meruem ignores Cell and continues.
One more word comes to mind. A word you call yourself.
Cell realizes what Meruem is about to say and begins to scowl intensely.
You wouldn't dare!
How can one as flawed as you be anything close to perfect?
That's it!
Cell closes the distance between the 2 creatures and grabs Meruem by the neck. Cell squeezes it intensely, a noticeable crack being heard indicating just how painful this was for Meruem. Still choking him, Cell then lifts Meruem into the air as high as his arm can go and gloats.
You're a dumbass. You really think I'm not perfect? When you see an ant, do you doubt its status as an insect? No, my dear bug. You may, but I was fortunate enough to receive a functioning brain and a little say in biology. You heard me. I come back stronger than ever. I will never stop evolving. That's what makes me perfect, and you shit!
Cell then brings the hand not holding Meruem to his forehead. 2 fingers outstretched begin charging a beam with crackling energy.
But I have to admit, you're a hell of a fighter, Bug. So let me give you a special goodbye.
He holds Meruem in place, still choking him, while charging this attack. As he does, lightning begins to strike all around his fingertips, as the energy from this beam seems to be immense. When he is finished, he lackadaisically pushes his fingers into Meruem's abdomen.
Makanko Sapo!
The drill-like beam completely guts through Meruem's abdomen and exits through his back, also colliding with a part of his tail. Due to the heat and proximity of the blast, Meruem isn't bleeding anywhere, but he does have a newfound hole in his chest. Cell tosses him to the ground as the beam continues on in the background, seemingly forever.
Fated fight, please. One boost in strength and you go down.
Meruem then gets back up and stands on both of his feet. Stumbling to do so, he resumes a fighting stance and speaks.
This isn't finished. Checkmate is not yours yet.
You didn't even have the common courtesy to die? Fine! If you want to checkmate so badly!
Cell then begins growing in size exponentially in every direction, as if he were a balloon being blown up.
I'll give you one!
Cell continues expanding as he speaks.
Consider this a gift, Bug! Special from me to you! A checkmate for us both! If my destiny is to tussle with a weakling like you, I might as well go out on my own terms!
He's going to explode himself. There's not enough time to run away. Not enough time. Not enough time. This has happened before. I was backed into a corner, and someone exploded themselves. Then, it was checkmate. Now, it appears to be so as well. If these are to be my last moments, I will spend them trying to remember you.
Hey, Bug! Are you listening? Are you even gonna try anything? Or have you accepted your pitiful fate, like the insect you are?
Meruem then sits down, in the same position as when this fight started, and concentrates.
Memories still elude me. I was hoping I could remember what was so important to me in the face of certain death. But alas, it appears the mind will not clear itself, even faced with something as gruesome as this.
You! I'm about to kill you, and you couldn't care less? Just what kind of monster are you?
For the first time since arriving in this world, Meruem's mouth creeps into a smile.
Monster? No. I'm simply Meruem.
Meruem! 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 Meruem!
Upon the last utterance of the Chimera Ant King's name, Cell's body implodes, taking Meruem with it. A smile permeating his face the entire time. Whatever was left at the Palace of Yscorto is nothing but charred remains, as Cell's explosion completely reduces the debris and rubble into ash and dust. For a minute, it appears as if no one is left after the explosion. However, covered in soot and burned from head to toe, the Chimera Ant King lives.
Poof. Yuppie. Pito.
Alongside him, regenerating from a mere molecule, Cell begins to reform. As he does, there's nothing Meruem can do to stop it in his current state. So he results in repeating those three names swirling in his head. Eventually, Cell is completely reconstituted and walks over to Meruem.
Pitiful bug. Pitiful insect. Pitiful ant. Perfection always remains, and scum like you die. It's just how the world works. I wonder if I should even bother finishing you off. You look terrible.
Suddenly, Cell's nose begins to bleed profusely, and he takes a finger to his nostril to investigate.
What?
Moments later, Cell keels over, dead. For being in close proximity to Meruem for so long, he had taken on the poor man's rose's poison. His corpse lay there for Meruem to gaze at for a moment, until it suddenly disappears in a flash of green and purple light. Meruem thinks about this encounter, about Cell, about this person he can't remember, and he repeats the names he knows one last time, before succumbing to his injuries and dying himself. Suddenly, Meruem is traveling in a tunnel of green and purple lights through some kind of subspace until he lands at the Palace of Yscorto. The real Palace of Yscorto. He looks around, unsure of what just happened. The memories he just formed with Cell feel like a blur to him, but he can't tell if that's due to the nature of the memories or the poisoning that's slowly killing him. Outside, a huge crowd of people is formed. Their plan, yes. Poof, Yuppie, Pito. The plan he made with them. To rule the world as its rightful king. The thoughts that led him to that conclusion seem like such a distant memory. All he can care to think about is what he can't remember. Someone's name. A girl's name. A blind girl's name.
I still can't remember. What am I going to do?
Poof suggests a game to the king, an offer he eagerly accepts. In the process of the game commencing, Meruem himself spots intruders and goes to incapacitate them in the crowd of humans. Then, an ant soldier comes forward. For what reason, the king does not know. But Meruem asks the soldier all the same. And finally, after pondering it for all this time, he can remember her name and the promise he made to her. He cannot help himself when her name escapes his lips, a declaration of his devotion to her, with just an utterance of her name.
Mugi.
Cell suddenly wakes standing inside of the Cell Games arena. It's a pleasant day on Earth. The wind is blowing, and the grass is greener. Cell almost thinks he'll miss it when it's gone, but he'd mourn the loss of the galaxy's greatest fighters far more. After all, what out there could challenge him more than Son Goku?
Hazy memories flood into my mind. What the hell is happening?
Suddenly, Cell remembers a deadly encounter with a foe that bears a striking resemblance to himself, and the fear he felt at said foe. What could instill this much trepidation into the perfect being? And why was it so hard to remember them?
This is weird. I can't clear my mind. I can't think straight. All I remember is the feeling.
What he wanted to say, but couldn't bring himself to, was that he could only remember the feeling of being scared.
It doesn't matter. After all, I have a tournament to look forward to today.
As he says that, on the distant horizon, he begins to feel an energy familiar to him. The energy of Son Goku. And his son, Gohan. But Cell never much cared for the brat. A smile envelops Cell's lips as he readies himself for what is sure to be the fight of his life.
It won't matter what happened to me then. All that matters is here and now. Come, Son Goku. Let me show you a perfect fight.
Ooh baby, hoo boy, what a doozy of a fight, huh? Let's talk about it. What's the deal with the endings? I can hear the cries echoing forth throughout the entire world. To that, I must say, let me cook. All will be revealed in time, and I do have a plan. Just trust me. As for what Cell was on with the fated fight stuff, make sure you watch the pre-episode monologues. Other than that, there's really only one point of contention I can think of, and that's Meruem using aura synthesis with a Cell Jr. To me, it makes sense he wouldn't get the ability to, do a fucking Kamehameha, but instead obtain the general ability to sustain a beam of energy. That's not something you see in Hunter x Hunter. Anytime aura is elongated, it's still attached to the person who used it. This is my long-winded way of saying every Dragon Ball technique is a mission mixed with transmutation. I can't help it, I've got the huntism. Let me know what you thought about the episode below, and I'll see you in the next episode of Versus Universe. Bye! We open to the same rundown temple Cell first saw Meruem in, as the man clad in black remains vigil and silent. The eruption of the East Gorto Palace shook the entire world, and yet, he remained as calm as ever. Sensing a presence, he does not turn as he speaks to a new man, one unfamiliar to the viewer.
You have arrived.
What? I can't miss all the fun.
You've seen it, haven't you? Another blight on this land. A so-called paradise.
What? Those bugs fighting for who can squash who first? What about it?
They've vanished.
Like escaped? From here?
The thing is, the only way both could leave is through death at the hands of one another. Knowing that, will you still carry forth?
Well, if you're paying me, I don't have a lot to complain about. Plus, I won't die that easily.
Very well. Go forth, son of Sparta.
The light casting him in shadow dissipates to reveal Dante the legendary Devil Hunter.
Alright, just tell me where to go and I'll do it.
Your fated fight is here.
Through the same screen he revealed Meruem to Selin, the cloaked figure shows Dante, a gigantic building the likes of which Dante hadn't seen since his childhood. A manor. Or, more accurately, a mansion, with the initials SMD adorning the front. As it zoomed inside, past the gate and to the door, a figure opened up and stepped out. This figure was smaller than Dante, older than Dante, and more aquatic than Dante. This figure was Scrooge McDuck.
Alright, Featherfowl, you just met your match.
Dante then shot the screen with ebony and ivory, right in the middle of where McDuck's head lay.
Jackpot.